What is up, YouTube? Welcome to another edition of the Got Next podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Baldwin, with my co-host, Donovan Moore.
What's up, man? We back at it, man.
Yep. You know, we got Ben and Bones Nate Ash back on the show. How you feeling, B?
Feeling good, man. Halfway through the season, a lot of surprises so far, and probably a lot more to come. So let's get at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Without further ado, man, let's get into it. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, all that type of stuff. And let's get to the intro.
You ready, Playboy?
Yo, turn it up, Slay. I can't hear nothing.
All right. So before we get into our picks and predictions for week 11, let's go ahead and go over the bye weeks for this week, man. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Miami Dolphins, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, let's get into the moment we've all been waiting for. It's been about a week or so, and we're back on the picks and predictions. So Thursday night football, we have the Titans and the Packers. Packers coming off a big win against the Cowboys, which I called the entire way. So, B, if you take it away, who you got this week?
This is a really tough one because the Packers look like they might have momentum now after that upset. And, Lambeau Field typically is hard to play at. I kind of could see either way, either result occur in this matchup, but I'm going to pick the Titans. I think they're going to put the ball on the ground. And it really doesn't matter, how well the Titans are playing at quarterback and a lot of other positions. But as long as Derrick Henry's running well, they usually win. They took the Chiefs to overtime with Malik Willis, who passed for like 80 yards. So I think the Titans have found the formula to success, and I think the Packers are one of those teams they can succeed using that formula against. I got the Titans.
I'm actually going with the Packers in this one. All season, their strength has been their defense, and the weakness has been the offense. So against the Cowboys, you see their offense finally start to get some things going, especially in the air. The wide receiver has been one of their most glaring issues we've talked about plenty times. So I'm going to go with the Packers at home coming off, I think, like a season-changing win for them on Sunday. And I think their defense will keep standing up, keep playing strong. And I think Aaron Rodgers and the receivers will start to get on the same page. So I like the Packers at home.
I'm also going to go with the Packers in this one. I saw a lot of good things from them last week. Like Donald said, I think it was a potential, rest of the schedule being changed for them, complete 180 for the way that the season's gone so far for the Packers. Some things I saw that I liked, they ran the ball, which was insane. That was really good to see. Aaron Jones was really good. Back to Aaron Jones stuff. I like that they, did what they did with the run game. Christian Watson was finally, healthy this week, and we saw him go off for, was it 3 touchdowns, I believe it was. Alan Lazard didn't do a lot this week, but I mean, I feel like, he's always a strong guy to do some things this week. So I love the matchup against the Titans. I'm going to rock with the Packers for this week. Next up, we have the Eagles coming off a loss to the Commanders. That was definitely a big game. A lot talked about this past Monday. We're going to let B go ahead and take this one. Who you got for this one?
I'll pick the Eagles. Obviously, good for the Colts and Jeff Saturday's debut, winning his first game as head coach. But it was against the Raiders, who are a total letdown this year. And I guess we'll get to them later. But I don't see the Eagles dropping 2 in a row, especially after having a wake-up call against Washington. And obviously, we'll talk about the Commanders soon. They seem to get one huge upset a year, and ever since they've had Rivera as head coach. And I guess, could be a wake-up call, the Eagles, or it could be their downfall, but certainly don't think they're going to lose back-to-back against the Colts when they have significantly more talent than they do. So I got the Eagles.
Yeah, I got the Eagles as well. Like you said, it was a major surprise for them to lose Sunday. I think they kind of needed that reality check, honestly. So I think they'll get it back in blood against the Colts, and they'll be all right. I don't think it'll be close, honestly. I think they might blow them out.
I'm gonna ultimately go with the Eagles, but I am gonna go against what Donovan said. I do think it might be close, just simply because the Eagles are not great against the run. At least I do not trust them against the run. I think that Jonathan Taylor looked like the old Jonathan Taylor this past week, so I think this might spell a little bit of trouble for the Eagles this week. But ultimately, I think that they do come out with a win. Next up, we have the Browns and the Bills. The Bills coming off of what it was an absolutely ridiculous loss. I think it actually told a lot more about the Bills than the Vikings. I think the Bills kind of just lost that one there at the end. But B, who you got for this week versus the Browns?
Yeah, I mean, conventional wisdom would tell me that this is going to be a blowout, but the only problem is the Bills. Unless they blow you out, they seem to always lose a close game. Unless they're blowing the team out, they seem like they don't know how to compete in close games. I think they're like 2-3 in close games this year. All three of their losses are squarely on Josh Allen too. For as much talent as he has, he sometimes plays a little out of control and loses his team games by just trying to make too many plays when he could have just made the easy throw. They certainly shouldn't lose to the Browns, but if they do, they're not only is Josh Allen losing or lost his MVP status, but that team's in deep trouble because they're in a dogfight of a division right now. So I'm going to go with the Bills, but I'm not too confident in them right now.
I'm going to take Buffalo as well. I've been seeing on Twitter it's supposed to be about like 3 to 6 feet of snow or something like that for this game in Buffalo. So I feel like it'll be close due to the weather conditions, and then the Browns are also very strong in the run game. So I feel like that kind of plays to their advantage because Buffalo, if there is a weakness, it has been kind of their run game and their, like you said, their late game, just kind of sealing the game type of stuff. But I think this game will be very close just due to the weather and stuff. But Buffalo needs it more than Cleveland. I honestly believe. I think Cleveland's getting to that range where they're just out of it playoff wise. So this is definitely more meaningful for Buffalo. So I like the Bills at home.
I think this game could potentially make it for the Browns. I've been watching them back in a couple of weeks. I just think that they would like to be in a decent position to kind of make a playoff push for Deshaun Watson. But I mean, obviously the Bills have more at stake in this game. They are third in their division right now, and after a really hot start, Josh Allen for MVP, all that type of stuff, hasn't looked very pretty the last couple weeks. Not gonna lie, but I'm gonna rock with the Bull. I said the Bulls, the Bills. Ultimately, I think that I do have a little bit of pause because of the weather situation. The Bills do not have a good running game, like Donald said. And the Browns have that awesome running game, and even their backup running back could probably start for the Bills. So kind of talk myself out of it there. I'm gonna rock with the Bills just because I think the Bills are a better ultimate team, but it's gonna be a rough week. I'm gonna say. Hopefully, Stephon Diggs can do some things for my fantasy team. Next up, we have the Cowboys and the Vikings. This is my team here. I'm ultimately gonna go with. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and give a little caveat here. I am on record, and I think Donovan's on record. Correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody told me that Dak Prescott is the black Kirk Cousins, and
that might have been me. That might have
Very
been.
comparable quarterbacks.
I'm pretty sure that was you. I'm gonna agree with that. I definitely like that premise. I'm not a Dak Prescott fan and definitely a Cowboys fan, but Dak Prescott is not it. I think he showed you that last week. So I am ultimately going to rock with the Vikings here. I think that their weapons are just going to be better than the Cowboys. And even though the Cowboys aren't bad, CeeDee Lamb had his probably best week of the season so far last week, but Justin Jefferson probably had his best week of the season, and it wasn't even close. So I'm going to rock with the Vikings here. Kind of hurts to say, but the Cowboys, I don't know, man. With the Commanders getting the win and the Giants looking pretty good, and we took an L last week. I don't know if we're really going to be, at the top of the NFC East, but we're going to have to see going forward.
Yeah, so that's very interesting because I've always kind of compared Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins. I think the jury's still out for who's a better quarterback. However, I feel like the edge kind of always went to Dak. And I think, honestly, the reason why is Kirk Cousins, his entire career, has gotten beaten by the Cowboys. I mean, you look at when he played for the Redskins, they always lost to Dallas when he was their quarterback, and Dallas was the Cowboys quarterback. And let's talk about Kirk since he's been on the Vikings. The last 2 years, he's lost to the Cowboys at home, and Dak wasn't even the quarterback for either of those games. He lost to Andy Dalton 2 years ago at home and Cooper Rush last year at home. And he doesn't have a good record against Dak. I think he's only beaten him like twice in his career. So, I mean, to be honest with you, I think the Cowboys, should have the upper hand. And the Vikings, have played really well. They've had a better year than the Cowboys so far, but it's 9-1. Like I feel like they're due for another loss at some point. And I feel like the fact that the Cowboys lost is going to propel them to play harder this week. So I think Kirk Cousins' woes against the Cowboys will continue, and and Dak will have that reputation as a slightly better quarterback than Kirk Cousins after this week, and the Cowboys will win.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I like the Cowboys as well. I feel like, and this is kind of a primetime game, so it might not be the same Kirk Cousins we saw a week ago. I believe this is at the 4 o'clock slot.
Mm-hmm.
You probably got Tony Romo commentating on this game, so that's pretty much a national broadcast. I don't like Kirk Cousins in those games, and I think with the Cowboys defense and how they had a 14-point lead also going into the fourth quarter last week, I just feel like combining those two factors together. And then the Vikings kind of had a miraculous when they earned it. Don't get me wrong, versus Buffalo, but Josh Allen fumbling that QB sneak kind of saved them and gave them the game. So I like the Cowboys to bounce back in this week. I think their defense will be the difference, and I think Michael Parsons may have a huge game.
I like that pick, guys. There's definitely no way for me to lose there. So next up, we have the Lions and the Giants. B, who you got in this one?
I got the Giants. The Lions are pretty much the same team they were last year, except they already have as many wins as they did last year. So slight improvement. They're competing almost all their games, get blown out in a few games. Kind of sound like the 2021 Lions all over again. Giants are a vastly improved team this year. Daniel Jones is playing the best football of his life, even though it's not saying much because his first 3 years were pretty bad. And so it's going to be hard for the Giants to move on from him now, but I still think they will. I don't think he's that good. I think Saquon and the Giants defense is carrying that team, and Daniel Jones is just being coached really well by Brian Dable into not making significant game-altering mistakes. But Giants are a better team than the Lions, and I think they go to 8-2 after this game. That's crazy to say. The Giants would be 8-2 after 10 games, but I think 8-2 is calling their name.
I honestly think this game will be very close. I want to take the Lions, but after seeing what Chicago did to them on the ground last week, putting up almost 300 yards, and the Giants' strength on offense is Saquon Barkley, I feel like he'll have a huge game. I think the Giants are going to win. It's going to be very close. I want to take the Lions, but I just feel like the Giants, anytime we've gone against them this year, they've just found ways to win games. Besides a couple hiccups, I think they maybe lost to Seattle or something like that, but who's also been a surprising team. So besides that, the Giants they've just been finding ways to win, so it's hard to go against that. I like the Giants.
I definitely agree with what Donald said. I originally looked at this matchup and was like, Lions? But probably not going to pick them ultimately because I do think the Giants are due for a loss that everybody's going to look at them and be like, maybe they're not that serious. Because I don't know if they've had that loss yet, and even if the Eagles just had that loss. So, I mean, they're a much better team than the Giants. So the Giants are definitely due for a loss here soon. But ultimately, the Lions are not good enough to beat the Giants this week. So I'm going to also rock with the Lions. I saw the Falcons in person recently. Not pretty. So Bears, Falcons, especially with what Justin Fields is doing right now, is anybody going to be picking the Falcons in this matchup?
Well,
they're kind of even teams.
Yeah,
they're even teams. They both run the football a lot.
Okay.
And I think the Falcons are probably one more loss away from having a quarterback change, just because they drafted Desmond Ridder to be the guy. Marcus Mariota did a good job of holding down the fort, but now they are 2 games under 500. And ultimately what does it for me is the game's being played at is the game being played at Chicago or Atlanta? It's at Atlanta. So I think the Falcons have a good chance of getting back on track. If the game was in cold weather Chicago, I'd pick the Bears, but I think it's one of these situations where I roll with the home team. Justin Fields is a great fantasy player all of a sudden. I still don't think he's that good at throwing the ball, but boy, can he run the ball. I mean, he's starting to look like Lamar on the ground, not like Lamar in the air, though, and that's why he's not that good yet. And I got the Falcons.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a close one. I feel like it's going to be a high-scoring, like high-rushing attempts type of game. Both sides, as you just explained, they both run the football, but the problem with that, when you run a ball control offense, you have to have a very solid to elite defense, and neither team has that. So this kind of comes down to who's the better quarterback here, I guess. And I'm going to go with the high hand. I like Justin Fields. So I think the Bears win this one on the road. It's very tough because the Falcons are one of those inconsistent teams. They can come out and blow Chicago out. So it definitely can go either way. I'm going Chicago, though.
Ultimately, I'm going with Chicago as well. You guys talked about how the Falcons run a lot, but Justin Fields, like Bennett said, is the next coming of Lamar. Looks like, at least in fantasy. At least in fantasy. Cordell Patterson, he didn't actually get a lot of attempts this past week. He was actually way out attempted by Deontay Foreman in their game against the Panthers. I like Cole Kmet from the Bears. I like David Montgomery now, who's going to have to step up now that Khalil Herbert's going to be put on IR. So I like the Bears. I don't think the Falcons really are going to have an answer for their run game. And furthermore, back to Bennett's point about their quarterback situation, Kyle Pitts has been atrocious all year. It has been gross. Kyle Pitts went from one of the most exciting prospects last year to just people just forgetting about him, not talking about him, just because he's not really getting a lot of the looks. Like, he got 8 targets when against the Panthers when I was there, and it looked like he only got 2 because the other passes were so bad. It looked like he wasn't even aiming for Kyle Pitts. So I'm gonna rock with the Bears. Marcus Mariota is pretty trash. So I think after they lose, they're definitely gonna have to look at their quarterback situation, like Bennett said. This one I actually have been struggling with like picking all week. The Jets and Patriots. Both teams are kind of hottish right now. The Patriots. I don't know. So who you guys got?
The last time the Jets beat the Patriots was Week 16 of 2015. Bill Belichick just absolutely owned the Jets, and I don't know. I can't think of. I mean, the Steelers dominated the Browns for about 2 decades with Big Ben, but other than that, I think the Patriots over the Jets is like the biggest head-to-head division lock. Cowboys have done pretty well against Washington throughout the years too, but Jets Patriots, that's one of the most lopsided division rivalries in the NFL, and I think it's just because Belichick knows his divisional opponents really well, and the Jets haven't really changed their identity and their fortune ever since Belichick's been the head coach of the Patriots. But that being said, they are significantly improved this year. However, Zach Wilson, we're still not all sold on him yet, and he's the reason they lost to the Patriots 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, he threw 3 interceptions. I think the Patriots will force turnovers out of him again. I like what the Jets are doing on defense. I like what they're doing on the ground, even with Breece Hall's injury. They're running the ball well still. But the Patriots are just kind of like that typical team that isn't very talented, but they're coached really well, and that's why they win games like these. And that's why I'm rocking with the Patriots.
Yeah, I'm going with the Patriots as well. Like we always say, Bill Belichick it's this thing when he goes against young quarterbacks that aren't Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar. Besides those 3, he pretty much finds ways to defeat younger quarterbacks. And Zach Wilson, I think the few games he's played against the Patriots, he's thrown at least 2 to 3 picks each time. So the Patriots, they got Mac Jones back. They're just leaning on that ground game, playing defense, just classic Patriot football. So I like the Patriots to win this one.
Donovan just talked about, the Patriots being able to turn over Zach Wilson. And we were just talking about fantasy with Justin Fields. So I do have the Patriots D in fantasy, and they are ranked. Do you guys know what they're ranked?
Probably top 3.
They are ranked number 1. Exactly, B. I'm rocking with the Patriots this week. I think that their defense is going to prove to be way too much for the Jets. And like B alluded to earlier, Bill Belichick has a thing for young quarterbacks. It's kind of weird, actually. So rocking with the Patriots. This week, we got a hot team in the Commanders feeling good about themselves, feeling brash. Another team that finally, I hope that they saw that they need to start running the ball more. So, B, how do you feel about the Commanders? Dono, how do you feel about the Commanders and Texans? Forgot this is your team.
The team just rallies around Heineke. It's really tough to explain because we all know he's limited as a quarterback. He doesn't have the strongest arm. He may not be the most accurate, but he just finds ways to win. It's really unexplainable. When a quarterback plays with passion like that, and then the backup at that, and then it just seems like the whole team gravitates towards him. And we're coming into this game pretty hot, getting Chase Young back. So that's like another morale boost for the team. So this is one of those you kind of build on what you did and kind of prove to the league that you're here and you want to be playoff contenders. So I feel like this is another must win for the Commanders. I like them to win this week. And I'm going with the home team. I like Washington.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, if you're looking for a good quarterback matchup, this game probably isn't it. But one thing I'll say is the Texans kind of look like last year's Lions. They're competing in a lot of their games and they're losing. However, I do think Commanders are getting hot right now. And like I said earlier in this episode, it seems like every year since Rivera's been their coach, they get hot at like this time of year. and this will be their first opportunity, I think, to get over 500 ever since Rivera's been their coach, ever since week one, if you don't include week one of the seasons. But I think they get over the hump. I think they beat Houston. I think they're really hitting their stride. Chase Young's going to be back, so I think that's going to be huge for morale. Commanders, NFC East went from the NFC least to the toughest division in football in 1 year. It's pretty amazing. So credit to the coaches, to the rosters, and that division. I really think Washington's competing for something right now. I think they see the 7 seed as a possibility. They really need to finish the season strong. They haven't done that the last 2 years, but I think getting over 500 will definitely get them going. Kudos to them for knocking off an undefeated team for the second time in 3 years. And I was just telling Donald the other day, it was a year ago from Monday when they beat the Bucks a year ago. So like I said, something magical about November in Washington. It's usually a good month for them. So keep it up if you're them. Don't let down against a team like the Texans, where I think Taylor Heineke will find himself on the bench again.
I definitely agree, B. I feel like you can't beat the Eagles 1 week and then lose to the Texans next week. That is ultimately demoralizing. So I want to believe that the Commanders are going to be good this week and that they're gonna lean on their run game. They have a lot of runners. They got J.D. McKissick. They got Antonio Gibson. They have the main running back, who I just forgot for a second. What's his name?
Robinson.
Yes, Brian Robinson, the guy that got shot. Yes, him. I think it's actually crazy that Brian Robinson came back from being shot quicker than Michael Thomas came back from a toe injury. So I am ultimately going to rock with the Commanders. The Titans don't really have – the Texans, don't have anything that's too impressive on the other side. So I think the Commanders definitely move up in the rankings this week. Next up, we have two seriously struggling teams, the Rams and the Saints. I think their playoff chances are done. So, B, who you got in this matchup?
I was looking at the Rams schedule a couple weeks ago because I was like, are they really not going to make the playoffs this year? But that Cooper Kupp injury is just absolutely devastating. He had ankle surgery this week, so he's out for a minimum of 4 to 5 weeks. And honestly, after those 4 to 5 weeks are up, I don't think there's going to be a big enough reason to play him again this year. And it's a shame because he was having a great year, but it looked like him and Aaron Donald were the only people having great years on the Rams. It looks like everybody else was having just about as terrible as a year as you can. I really thought the Bobby Wagner addition was going to keep him, was going to replace Von Miller on defense, and it clearly hasn't, even though Bobby Wagner's still a dog. But the rest of their team is just trash, and the Saints are trash too. So it makes it kind of hard to pick. But I'm gonna pick the Saints just because I think the Rams are down bad right now, and I don't know. I think they really sacrificed it all for a Super Bowl last year. So kudos to them for doing that, but it really came at a cost, and you're starting to see it now.
Is Matt Stafford playing this week?
I think he will because it was concussion last week. So usually, unless you're Tua, and you're usually out for just 1 week for a concussion. So
this is a tough one because Cooper Kupp is literally the Rams' offense. We saw with Matt Stafford at quarterback, he force-fed Cooper Kupp. So this could maybe catapult Allen Robinson into having some better games. I feel like in a game like this where both these teams are struggling mightily, it comes down to the coaches, and Sean McVay is a Super Bowl winning coach. I think the Rams will win a close one down in New Orleans, but I would not be surprised one bit if they lost this game. But I'm going to go with the Rams just because of Sean McVay.
I'm also going with the Rams here. This is definitely a hard pick. I think both teams have guys that have been underutilized this year. The Rams with Allen Robinson and the Saints with Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara has had 3 touchdowns all year, and they all came in 1 week. And he had 18 attempts that week. The next 2 weeks, he had 9 attempts and 8 attempts, which means he's had less attempts in 2 weeks than he did in 1 week, which was crazy. So they're basically just not getting Alvin Kamara the ball. Andy Dalton, pretty trash so far. Glad he's not on the Cowboys anymore. Jameis Winston, we don't know if he'll be starting, but that also does not spell anything good for Alvin Kamara, who I believe is the Saints' best player right now. Chris Olave is solid, but I think the Rams are just the more cohesive team. I think that they just have more that I can lean on here. The Saints, I never know what I'm going to get from them on a week-to-week basis. So I'm going to rock with the Rams, and I just think it might just be a close one, but it's really hard to pick this one for sure.
And I'll just say one more thing real fast about the Saints. I can also see why Sean Payton kind of quit as their head coach because they don't have a first-round pick next year, and they desperately need a quarterback. So I don't think he was down to coach that. That's why I think he took this year off and is going to demand to be traded to another team to coach next year because that's kind of a mess over there. They're not playing Jameis Winston. They're playing Andy Dalton, who's probably nearing retirement, over Jameis Winston. So they clearly don't believe they have a quarterback in the room. So it's not going to be pretty in New Orleans next couple of years.
Not at all. And then Michael Thomas has had 2 season-ending injuries back to back. So it's like, what is there to be optimistic about with the Saints? So next up, we got the Panthers and the Ravens. Is anybody going to pick the Panthers in this one? With Baker Mayfield is starting this week.
I think Baker Mayfield started and answers that question for.
Yeah,
I love it.
I love it.
Like playing all his former division opponents and just getting smashed by all of them.
I mean, from history, it says that Baker Mayfield plays well against the Ravens. So, Dono, Panthers?
Nah.
All right. Ravens it is. All right. So, across the board, we got the Ravens. We got Raiders and Broncos. Holy, is this the battle of mid? You see B's face. Not excited about this matchup. Not much to say. Both teams very disgusting. I think that personally, whoever loses this week between the teams, their coach gets fired on Monday. B, who do you have in this matchup of which coach is going to get fired first?
Yo, Mitch, that was actually a really good prediction because I remember I told you guys last week, I texted you guys, I'm like, if they lose to the Colts and Jeff Saturday's first game coaching, I think Josh McDaniels is going to get fired. and you know what's funny? Mark Davis, their owner, said the next day, he said, we believe in Josh. But the week before Frank Reich got fired by the Colts, their owner said that about him too. So I think when your owner says that about you, it really means he's like a week away from getting ready to fire you. So I think that's actually a really accurate prediction. I don't know who's going to win this game. It's about who's going to lose this game. That's what I feel like it's about because both of these teams don't really know how to earn a dub. God, Russell Wilson's been so bad this year, and that's another crazy thing. Kirk Cousins and Ryan Tannehill are from Russell Wilson's draft class, and they both look like better quarterbacks than Russell Wilson right now. I never thought in a million years I would say that, but God, I'm gonna pick the Raiders. I'm gonna pick the Raiders. I just think I think the Broncos are more cursed than the Raiders for some reason. So I guess it'll be bye Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, we all know both these teams are probably gonna make changes at coaches at the end of the year, especially the Broncos. But yeah, I think the Raiders are gonna win this game just because the Broncos are gonna lose the game. That's why. That's my explanation.
I honestly don't know who's gonna win this game. This is just one of those. If you're a bettor, you don't bet on it. You just like
stay away.
Take the points or something. Take the over 48. Who knows? But I believe the first time they played, the Raiders won.
Yep.
This is back in Denver. This is such a terrible game. We got to make picks here. That's what we're here for. I will. I'll take the Raiders. I think Jerry Jeudy will be out.
Yeah, he's gonna be out several weeks.
Yeah, Jerry Jeudy's out, and from already struggling Denver offense. The Broncos have a very strong defense, but they're getting no help whatsoever from Russell Wilson in the offense, which is honestly surprising. Like Bennett said, it's honestly surprising to see Russell Wilson perform like this. I'll take the Raiders.
I'm also going to go with the Raiders. I think it's hilarious how B was about to pick his pick. He's like, Raiders, just real quick at the end, because nobody knows who's going to win this game. It's that big of a toss-up. It's hilarious. I like what the Raiders have, though. I think that the Raiders just have better weapons. I mean, of course, you got Devontae Adams. Josh Jacobs, top 5 running back at one point in the season. The Broncos dealing with a decent amount of injuries, but there's nothing on this team that just screams optimism. Nothing really screams that this is going to get turned around at all. Russell Wilson has been absolute garbage. And, I never was a Russell Wilson fan or a hater. Now I absolutely hate him. He tried to single-handedly sabotage my fantasy season. He has been garbage. I'm talking if the Broncos have scored 18 points, and I think like any of the games that they've lost, they would have won those games. They can't even put together 18 points on a weekly basis. I'm rocking with the Raiders. I think Nathaniel Hackett probably should have got fired weeks ago, but I think he definitely gets fired after they lose to the Raiders this week. Next up, we got B's team here. We got the Steelers and the Bengals. The Steelers looking a little bit better here to end the season a little bit, as the season's coming down to the wire. So, B, how do you like you guys' chances against the Bengals this week?
Well, if y'all remember, we played them in week 1, and it was probably the ugliest game of the year, but we won somehow, and I did not think – none of us thought that there was a chance of that happening. It still, I think, is overall unlikely. I've only picked the Steelers in one game this year, and it was against the Jets, and they lost. So I remember I asked you, Mitch, I'm like, how do you deal with losing season? You said 2 words, expect nothing. So I kind of want to pick the Bengals for that reason. However, looks like Minka Fitzpatrick's going to be back this week. TJ Watt already showed how big of an impact he has on the Steelers last week in his return against the Saints. I think it was like a sack and two backfield tackles. So he's obviously a monster, and he loves to get in Joe Burrow's face through all the times we played them. And no Jamar Chase. It's almost daring me to pick my team here. But I'm going to pick the Bengals. I don't think this is the Steelers here. And also Chris Boswell, our kicker, is out for 4 weeks with a groin. Our kicker last week missed 2 field goals. So I'm just like, this ain't our year. This ain't our year. I got the Bengals. The Bengals are coming off a bye too. I think they should be a little more in sync than they were in week 1.
Ooh. Yeah, coming off of a bye week, I feel like the Bengals are going to be more in tune and adjusted, not having Jamar Chase. They probably have some plays schemed up there. But I think they're getting into that playoff push as well. The AFC is definitely tough, so the Bengals need to win as much as they can. And a game like this, where the Steelers are playing a rookie quarterback, obviously they have their offensive limitations. This is almost a must-win for the Bengals. They need this one. So I like the Bengals to win this game and beat Pittsburgh. But you made great points about their top defenders being back, TJ and Minka Fitzpatrick. But I think T. Higgins will have a solid game here in the Bengals game.
I'm sorry, I missed that first part. Did you pick the Bengals or the Steelers?
Bengals.
The Bengals. I'm gonna rock with Steelers. I'm gonna go Steelers here. I love the impact that TJ Watt has on the defensive end. I think the Bengals a couple times this year have had those panic games where you just look at them and you're like, oh gosh, I don't see anything positive going on. I think that this may be a week like that. Kenny Pickett is looking better and better. He's not unfortunately going to be the offensive rookie of the year like B said, but he may be solid going down the stretch. So I'm going to rock with the Steelers here. It is ultimately a hard pick. I feel like the Bengals have to start putting some wins together here, but I'm going to go with the Steelers. Point of note, Najee Harris has not been great this year. B, how do you feel about the optimism on Najee Harris?
I feel like I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and I feel like Najee Harris could have been a really good running back in other places, but the problem is the Steelers, I think, have the worst offensive line in the league. And Najee's the type of runner. He's not a speed back. He's more of just a power back. So I think with those type of backs, you need a good line for that. So I think he would have worked out in a lot of places. Unfortunately, the Steelers seem to be wasting his career so far, and the running backs kind of have a short life in the NFL, especially if they don't have good lines. So I hope this problem gets resolved by next year. The Steelers really need to be aggressive with linemen, not only in the draft but free agency, to save Najee's career, in my opinion. Because it's unfortunate because he was a great back in college, but he's not one of those guys who will succeed without a line. He's not fast enough.
Well, all righty. You heard it from the Steelers fan himself. Next up, guys, we have a pretty decent games here. I think these two are definitely going to separate the men from the boys. All right, we're going to not have a lot of light picks here. So we got the Chiefs and the Chargers. Mahomes versus Herbert. H versus H. B, how do you feel about this matchup?
You guys might think I'm crazy, but I'm actually going to pick the Chargers. And the reason I'm going to pick the Chargers is I feel like I've been getting the Chargers wrong all year. When I pick them to win, they lose. Whenever I pick them to lose, they win. And I just think typically I would have picked them to lose a game like this. But I think despite all the injuries they had last week, they actually played the Niners pretty well, even though I picked them still, of course. But I thought they showed some heart. They just didn't have weapons, and they still don't have a lot of those weapons this week. However, I think they should have beaten the Chiefs in week 2. Justin Herbert had that weird pick six that I think was the receiver's fault. And I think he's had a pretty good career against the Chiefs. So I think they'll come out guns blazing. And I think the Chiefs are also due for one more letdown. And Juju got a concussion last week, so he got hit really hard. I don't think he's going to play this week. I could be wrong, but I think if they make it all about Mahomes and Kelsey, you beat us. I don't think the receivers are good enough to run away with the game. So if the Chargers can keep it close, I think they have a chance of winning. It might just be one of those games where the Chiefs have a little bit of a letdown, and that's what I'm betting on because I don't think there's a clear-cut favorite, the AFC, between the Chiefs and Bills yet, and I think they're due for a letdown. So I got the Chargers.
You made some great points about the Chargers. I feel like the deciding factor here is the weapons part, as you mentioned. I think Mike Williams is still hurt. Who knows what's going on with Keenan Allen? The Chiefs are really going to key in on Austin Eckler, and he'll still get his catches, he'll get his yards. But I feel like ultimately, especially with Joey Bosa out for them on defense as well, and then J.C. Jackson is out for the year, one of their top cover corners. So I like the Chiefs to win this game. They just find ways to beat the Chargers. I can't explain it. Even when you think they're down and out, they just find ways to come back and win. So I like the Chargers. I mean, the Chiefs.
I'm also going to harp on the Chargers injuries. They just really have not been healthy all year. A lot of people had Herbert as an MVP candidate. The Chargers is winning their division. Maybe obviously those things are not going to happen, and I don't think it gets much better this week versus the Chiefs. I know that the Chiefs have Juju out. I don't think that he should play. I think this is his third concussion since being in the NFL. So it's not really good, especially this one being the worst one. Definitely was not a good look for sure. So I don't know if he plays this week. I doubt it. But they do have Kadarius Toney, who I think that they can't wait to pull out this week because he suddenly looks like what the Giants thought that he was. So that's just the Mahomes effect. I think that Travis Kelce, obviously they got Pacheco that's stepping up in the running back position. So I like what the Chiefs have. The Chargers, I just don't think that this is their year, honestly. So I think the Chiefs are probably due for another letdown, but I don't think it'll be. Last but not least, guys, we have the Cardinals versus the 49ers. This is probably my favorite matchup. I think I'm going to
I
watch.
don't think Kyler Murray's playing.
Whoa, really? I forgot about that.
Yeah, I think they tweeted that earlier. He could be out another week.
Is it Colt McCoy? Is there backup?
Yeah.
Okay, so Colt McCoy, I mean, he didn't look horrible last week. I mean, Rondale Moore still got his looks. DeAndre Hopkins still got his looks. James Conner looks pretty good so far. So how do you feel about the Cardinals versus 49ers, B?
I think, like you said, Colt McCoy is a pretty good backup, and I think he actually did he beat the Niners once last year. I think he went 2-2 as their starter last year, Colt McCoy. So I think he beat the Niners on the road. However, like I said, on the subject of coaches who will get fired at the end of the year, I think Cliff Kingsbury's got a very good chance to be on that list. Never like to talk about a man's job like that, but they're all making millions anyway. So yeah, so I just think he's on the hot seat, and I think the Niners are getting more and more confident about their team. I think that win over the Chargers last week was big for their confidence, and I think the Christian McCaffrey addition is looking pretty solid so far. He's looking like a C-Mac of old now with a good offensive line. And Jimmy Garoppolo I saw a stat. Do you see the Niners are like, I think they're 10-2 in games where Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't throw a touchdown or an interception, which is crazy. So it just seems like don't let him be the reason you guys lose, and you have a really good chance of winning. So I'm going to roll the Niners.
Yeah, I like the 49ers as well. They've had a strong defense all year, and especially if Kyler Murray's not playing, I feel like they'll definitely tee off on Colt McCoy. And I feel like they got to unleash Debo a little bit. Debo Samuel, I feel like kind of been getting lost in the fold since the McCaffrey addition. And then they've been throwing it a lot to Ayuk out on the perimeter. So I feel like Debo Samuel may get back into the game plan here. And I like the 49ers to win.
I do ultimately like the 49ers team. But again, like Dono said, I think since the McCaffrey acquisition, a lot of people have just been getting lost in the shuffle. George Kittle looks nothing like the top 3 tight end that I know he can be. He's not getting any of the targets. They're basically using him as a blocker. It looks like a committee running back between Elijah and CMC this past week, which I'm very confused about with as much as they traded away to get CMC. And Brandon Ayuk, he's had a lot of really good games. I think he's due for a down game here. The Cardinals might be able to shock the 49ers here. I think I'm going to go with the Cardinals, honestly. I think that the 49ers need a loss that's going to wake them up and allow them to use their weapons a little bit better, and you realize what they have, because right now they're not utilizing what they have. They're kind of like doing the same thing week to week, and they have too many weapons for that. So I'm hoping the Cardinals, give them a little gut punch this week. I'm rocking with the Cardinals ultimately for this week. And that's all the games that we have covered for you guys. Is there anything else you guys want to add before we get off?
Ooh, in that game, I don't know if you said already, but it's being played in Mexico. So no home team in that game. But
Wow.
Cardinals are the selected home team, but it's in Mexico. So we'll see how they play down there. But other than that, I think we mentioned it all.
Yep, absolutely. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, all that type of stuff, man. Follow us on TikTok, follow us on Instagram. And last but not least, we're going to go over our buys one more time. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars, Miami Dolphins, Seattle Seahawks, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Thank you guys for watching. We'll catch y'all next week.